In today's video, we're having a look at the Parkside 20V cordless circular saw, model PHKSA 20L-IC4. It uses a 160mm blade with 20mm centre hole. The blade is 1 cm larger than the previous version, which used a 150mm blade. Because of this, it can cut up to 53mm deep at 90 degrees and 38.5mm thick at 45 degrees. This is an improvement over the previous model, which could not fully cut through 5 cm thick lumber. It comes without a battery and without a charger, the only accessories included being an edge guide and a hex key. It was made by Grizzly Tools in China. It comes in this classic Parkside carrying case with metal latches but a plastic hinge. In the case we have the circular saw itself, which looks like a nicely built unit. We'll have a closer look at it in a minute. We also have a standard parallel edge guide that has a ruler marked on one side, and a small vacuum hose adapter made from plastic. In the box there is also room for two 4Ah batteries, one mounted on the tool and one in this marked location. There is also a dedicated place for a charger, either 2 amps or this 4.5 amps one. Let's have a look at the saw now. It weighs 2.2 kilograms without a battery and 2.9 kilograms with a 4Ah battery. It has a safety switch that needs to be pressed with your thumb before you can start the saw. I find its positioning a bit awkward and interfering with my grip of the handle. It can be pressed from either side. Speaking of grip, the tool is covered in rubber in all the right places. The base plate is made of moulded aluminium, not of stamped sheet metal, which is nice. Not so nice is the paint they used on it that scratched off during the first few cuts. Another nice feature it has is this adjustment screw that can be used to make the blade a perfect 90 degrees with the base plate. And it was really in need of adjustment since it is off by at least 2mm. It was so out of alignment that I nearly ran out of thread. I will replace it with a longer set screw later. It's much better now. Let's do some test cuts. First we start with a light cut in laminate flooring, since I think this is what I'll use it for the most. As expected, it cuts it without a problem. For our next test, we'll use the parallel guide on this piece of 18mm chipboard. Again, it cuts it without issues and it looks pretty straight. We'll cut another strip and compare them. They look to be identical and are flush at the edge, so the saw is pretty accurate now. For the next test, I want to cut some construction grade lumber, so I changed the 48 tooth included blade with a more suitable 24 tooth one. I got this blade from Lidl at the same time with the saw, and they were right next to each other, yet the blade has a 30mm hole and needs to use an adapter ring. Always remove the battery when working on the saw. The saw has a place to store the Allen wrench required for changing the blades. This red button locks the spindle. What I found strange is that the bolt has normal right-hand threads. I was under the impression that on saws they used left-hand threads. I guess that is only on miter saws. The included blade is a minor downgrade over the previous version, but it will do, considering the whole saw was cheaper than a quality blade. The blade seems well balanced, so let's continue with the tests. This was construction grade dry pine wood 25mm thick. It cut it without issues. And a small test of speed and depth of cut. This is 5x5cm pine wood. As you can see, it cuts it like butter. I really like this saw and can see many uses for it. I know the paint on the base plate is already falling off. I know they cheaped out on the new blade, and that the blade guard is made out of plastic, and that they removed the laser from the previous version. But I like the way it sits in the hand, and the way it cuts, and for the €35 I paid for it, I am more than happy. I just hope it will last in time. I've heard that previous versions had some issues in the gearbox,